Hello there, and welcome to Women's Business.
My name is Dr. Marianne Shallcross-Smith, known to most as Dr. Daycare, and this is my co-host, Amy Vogel. We'd like to welcome you to our mentoring program designed to educate our community on issues facing working women. We will be speaking to our guests in the areas art, sciences, health, education, law, medicine, politics, community service, military, and business.
The goal of the show is to provide information that comes only from personal experience and to pass this information down to our daughters, nieces, neighbors, family, and friends. Much of the content will relate to the guest speaker's journey in their profession, what they have learned most about this process, and what they wished they had known before this journey began. Since women-owned businesses are the fastest growing sector of our economy, my guests will close with what lesson they would like to pass on to the viewing audience. Thank you for joining me on Women's Business. I am Amy Vogel and honored to welcome Tina Melo. She is joining us from the Melo Project Runway for the Youth. Hi, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you for joining Women's Business.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of course.
It's exciting.
I'm so excited to learn all about Melo Project Runway for the Youth. Why don't you explain to the listening audience what this is?
Well, I started this when I came back from Europe. I was living abroad for 20 years. I was a fashion analyst for Ralph Lauren, Victoria's Secrets, Converse, pretty much 90% of the fashion industry.
That's amazing.
I came back in 2011, and it was because my grandmother was she was passing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then my father got sick,
Okay.
and he died a few years later. But so I ended up staying in Rhode Island and not going back to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was here, I had met a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
I started a little gallery to keep myself occupied. I'd turn this gallery into like my trend boards that I would present to the fashion industry.
That is awesome.
And I thought I had this calling that it was the artists that needed my help for some reason. I was born with this intuition to feel or predict something, have a gift of prophecy.
Yep.
And I thought it was the artists that were needing help. So I spoke in front of the United States House of Representatives on behalf of all the artists
Oh, wow.
to pass Rhode Island as the first art tax-free state.
Really?
So that was really exciting. I got to meet people. I mean, I hadn't lived in Rhode Island for 30 years.
That's
I'm a native
amazing.
Rhode Islander. So I started getting, you meet here, meet this person, meet that. So I got very involved with this community, and then I opened this gallery, and then it was Galleria United in Pawtucket, because they were trying to promote artists in
In
the
Pawtucket,
area.
they're really doing a great job with that.
Yeah.
With the art festivals. That's amazing.
So there was a big push, and there was been some changes there. But then I started this. I had this vision to teach children.
Wow.
I had some Montessori training
Oh, wow.
in Munich, and I started my own English-speaking Montessori mini preschool, like infants before kindergarten.
Really?
So when I had my two children, after I retired from the fashion industry, I stayed home because I couldn't travel so much anymore. I mean, I was usually in Paris, Milan, covering the shows or traveling to Asia. And to be a full-time mom,
It's not as easy.
you can't do it.
No.
You literally got to pick one or the
Yeah.
other. So
The balance
I
is
literally
difficult.
said goodbye to the fashion industry.
Wow.
Never thought to ever go back. And I concentrated on child raising
Wow.
and Montessori and Dr. Jim Fay, Love and Logic Magic. And then I got very involved with the Munich International School and with my sons. They were born back to back. Then I had
Busy
to
mom.
sell my company, the Melo Reports. I was called the Melo Reports, and I found that it made me so happy. Like I had a passion for fashion. I mean, I was always, ever since
Like since you were little?
Oh yeah, 5 years old. I was drawing. I was
Really?
drawing all the time. I mean, if I didn't have an art class, I don't think I ever would have survived.
That's amazing. Me, if I had an art class, I would be awful.
You never know.
Oh,
Sometimes art therapy is just
Yeah.
one of the most important things for me
That's
that
amazing.
I actually
though.
do
but
right
that
now.
young, you knew
Oh, I knew.
that was your passion.
Oh, yeah, I drew all the time.
That's amazing.
On napkins in restaurants, whatever I could get my hands on.
That's amazing.
So that's why I ended up at Rhode Island School of Design at RISD.
And think about it, being a native Rhode Islander and going to RISD, one of the best art schools in the country.
I didn't even know that back then.
Right in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And look at where it brought you. So after you graduated from RISD, was it fashion, merchandise, and design? Is that?
No, it's apparel.
Okay.
Apparel design.
You went to?
New York. Wow. I was a sweater and knitwear designer. I worked as an intern with Liz Claiborne, if anybody still knows who she is.
Yes, of course.
And then I went on to work for other companies, Chows, it was Mass America. They sold everywhere. It was Josephine Chows, Bernie Chows. Then I went to SK and Company.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is in the 80s and 90s. You remember the sweaters with the printed skirts?
Yes, I think.
I'm sure a lot of people out there remember this. Well, I was your designer of those sweaters.
Really?
I did more sweaters to match the woven printed skirts in the 80s. And then two-piece knit dressing.
Yes.
So that's why I traveled so much to Asia, because we actually produced all our first samples there. So Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea.
That's absolutely.
I was living the dream.
You really were. Like I see this on movies, but I never really thought people did this.
I did it.
That's
It was my life.
absolutely amazing. And then you ended up in Germany,
Yes.
and you lived there for.
20 years.
And how many languages do you speak?
7.
That's amazing.
Kind of pick up.
Yeah. Well, once you're immersed in it, right? You have no choice. You need to either learn it or constantly have a book try and translate what someone's saying, which is very difficult.
And it helps. People appreciate when you speak their language, because if you have to cover shows in Paris or Milan, they appreciate that you speak their language.
I'm sure.
Or in even Asia, you pick up a few words.
That's absolutely amazing. That's incredible. So you come back to Rhode Island
Yes.
after having all of these experiences, most experiences most people don't ever have, and you start a new company
Yes.
with children.
Yes.
So what do you do with the kids?
Well, getting back this gallery, I thought it was this calling, like something I needed. And I had 85 artists in there. But at the same time, I was running into children from the Met.
Oh, yeah.
And I came back and I said, I have this vision. Kids, I heard that the arts were taken away. I mean, I had lost a lot of 20 years, 30 years in the educational. So a lot of things had changed. So I heard that whole creative part was taken away. And somehow these children found their way to me, the Met students. They called me and said, well, if you're going to do art and fashion, they're interested in fashion design. And I hear you're starting a program. So for a whole year, I taught them 3 days a week, 6 kids, to tweak this idea that I had. I said, I want to teach fashion design because it looks like everybody wants to be a designer now.
Yeah.
Back then, I was probably one of the many.
Yeah.
And suddenly everybody wants to be a fashion designer.
That's amazing.
And so I said, okay, why don't I create my own curriculum after school to learn to sew and pattern make so they don't have to wait to get to college to pursue their passions. So if I had the ability to start doing it at 5 years old and up, they can't even reach the pedal, but they learn how to sew and make their own patterns. They jump on the cutting table and they learn math and they empower themselves.
That's amazing.
And so I had this idea. Everybody thought I was crazy.
No, I think it's a fabulous idea.
And I said, okay, I'm going to prove it.
Yeah.
And I proved it. It worked. And yeah, it's been empowering for the youth and to empower them to have no fear. That's my role.
So these kids come to you and you teach them things that you've learned throughout your career.
Yes, that's what I did. I put it all together.
That's
used a
amazing.
Montessori principle to water it down to a level where the simplest thing they could produce and create and sew and then wear it at a fashion show at the end of the year. That's why it's called the Project Runway.
That is absolutely amazing. And how many kids have gone through your program?
Oh, geez. At least 100.
Oh, my gosh.
In the last, since 2011.
That is absolutely amazing. Now, because at a young age you knew you loved art and you loved fashion, if one of these kids you're mentoring them, what do you tell them to do? They take your after school class, but what else do you suggest that they do if they want to pursue this passion? Like not, you went to RISD, which is like the perfect school to go to. You went to New York, which is the #1 place to go to after you graduate, right?
Yeah.
And then to Europe and Asia. Like you hit every major step in fashion.
Yes.
That's not easy to do. That doesn't normally happen.
Well,
So how did you make that happen?
well, it is because when I meet these kids, when they come, their parents bring their children to me. It doesn't matter what age, male or female. They come. First thing I say, do you draw? And I said, yeah. I said, do you dream in color or in black and white? Do you draw eyes? I ask them questions, and I have found that everything that I experience as a kid, they experience the exact same thing.
Really?
Anybody that's born creative, you can automatically tell. And if you work with them and on one-on-one basis, because it is a complicated thing to do a pattern, and everyone does their own design to fit their own body.
Okay.
So I run my studio as if it was a real life New York studio. I want them to get the experience of what it's like to be a real designer in New York.
That's amazing.
So it's not even like going to RISD and taking your apparel classes and learning, because everyone's doing the same peg skirt, same thing, except when they have to create their own collection, they're creating it separately. But their lessons are all doing the same piece. For me, I start teaching them to sew first, which is a special thing I developed, which takes like 2 classes. That's it.
How many of the kids come in with any sewing knowledge?
Some, but
Really?
I have to start all over because it's simple, just shapes. Your entire body's shape. So if you can sew a shape, then you'll know how to sew that shape when it comes to your design.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I can't sew either.
I
can't
no,
try. I
everybody
can't
can sew. It's absolutely not true.
Really?
It's just the way you teach it and the way you show it, it's a foolproof. I mean, I have 5 years old to 80. Even
Really?
people that were teaching home economics for years
Yeah.
have come to me because they were never taught to make a pattern. They were taught to follow one,
Yes.
but never taught to make one.
I remember in home ec, everyone had to follow the pattern of the first letter of their name. Mine was A. I found it very complicated that I had to have a hole in the middle of it. I'm like, why couldn't it be L or something easy? Or just 2 lines. I would have taken I.
That's because you need to be challenged because you could do it.
I guess so.
Yes.
So they create the pattern.
They create their own design first after they learned the history of fashion, because fashion repeats itself. So I go through a sewing class, then I teach them the history of fashion where they learn the necklines. They go home after like, Mommy, that's a boat neck, that's a V-neck, that's a high neck. Their parents are like, what? They go into their closet. Then they learn to draw a technical sketch. It's really...
What's that?
Okay, technical sketch is a flat sketch of a garment.
Okay.
It's like literally more mechanical,
Okay.
and it's really simple. They all learn how to do that. And then they go and they say, okay, here's my concept boards, where we use concept boards, like my trend reports back in when I was giving fashion information to the design houses.
Yep.
Every design house runs this way. You need a concept.
Okay.
So they pick their own, the one that resonates with them. It's all freedom of choice.
That's amazing.
And then they design their own first piece. And I help them make the pattern. And then they make the pattern. They add the seam allowance. And they learn to cut the fabric. They pick the fabric. They shop fabric, shop trims.
Really?
Oh, no, it's a real life experience. And they never want to go home.
Oh, I'm sure.
They don't want to ever leave. They want sleepover parties.
So then at the runway show, they wear whatever they made.
Yes.
That's absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
So depending on how difficult or how challenging, one had a coat. One boy did a man's tailored suit.
A
wore it
whole
to his-
suit?
Oh, it took him all year. He wore it to his graduation. Yeah.
That is a whole suit?
Yeah, I have a video. Yeah. A whole suit.
Absolutely amazing.
Pant and jacket. Lining, pockets, shoulder pads.
That's absolutely amazing.
It really pushed me to realize that they can do it.
Well, because that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, I wouldn't have. I almost said no.
Yeah, like maybe just a jacket.
I almost said no, but I said, you know what? Well, then I'd be going against the principle to empower them and never say no to what. Because if they're going to learn.
I think this is amazing, just because if you do have a son or a daughter that's interested in anything creative or artsy or fashion or sewing, it gives them an opportunity to find out.
Yes.
And it also gives them an opportunity to do something new. I think so many times we get stuck in our box of like, this is what I'm good at. Let me continue to do what I'm good at. Like, but this might push someone outside that and be like, but I like this. I like to sew, or I like to create. I like to make my own pieces. That's amazing. Now, do you sew your clothes to this day?
No, I did it when I was in high school.
Really?
I was making a piece and then wear it the next day. And then I started learning to make patterns. But I just recently started doing it. I mean, since college.
Yeah.
I don't want to age myself, but I am going to start. I did start doing a few pieces to help the kids, because you need to put a fashion show. You need to start having more pieces.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I started sewing. Because as a designer in the industry, all you do is do your technical sketches.
Oh, you don't.
On a spec sheet. You don't ever sew again.
And you said that happens.
And you send it to Asia or factories wherever in Europe, depending on who's producing it. You never touch a sewing machine again. So
really?
Yeah, by doing this, got me back on the sewing machine.
That's amazing.
And then I started getting my creative juices. Like with the kids, I had to create pieces to fill in to create a show.
That's amazing.
And so step by step, it's grown into what we call the Indigo Justice Collection.
Oh, that is.
But it's for a cause.
Oh, what cause?
It's for child trafficking, raising awareness against child trafficking. This has been my, I became an advocate for children too, because I became very aware of this. And this is what pushed me more into working with children, because for me, it wasn't just about fulfilling their creative need for education in school, but I found that the kids are in a 21st century, I call it, child abuse, and it's been something that was hidden for a very long time, and I think with the Epstein thing, it's coming out. But for me, that was the reason why I started this.
Yep.
It was to, I saw that I started becoming aware of it. I lived in a box.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like old-fashioned, very strict father, go to church, no boyfriends, go to college. I had to commute back and forth to
and you followed the rules that were
I followed the rules, never answered back. And I thought the world was beautiful. I mean, look, I had a beautiful career. I had no idea that people out there could do such a horrible thing to children. And when I became more aware of it, I have this sensitivity about this. And somehow I did go through something, not through me, but
through something.
Yeah, my children.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of changed my life. It went from one thing to being awoken to something very dark. And I wanted to change something negative into something positive. So I wanted to help as many kids as I could.
That's amazing.
And I wanted to do it through art and fashion. I work with disabilities children too.
That's amazing.
I do art classes.
That's amazing.
And
so all the proceeds
go toward me being able to teach and work with victims, survivors of child sexual abuse, adults or kids, and kids that are from underprivileged. They're maybe don't have a
they don't have the means to
DCYF, kids that were also trafficked or sexually abused, and the proceeds. I'm also a nonprofit. I became a 501c3 and a local nonprofit, which took a while.
Yes, it's not an easy feat.
No, it isn't. I mean, yeah, it wasn't. And so we became that 2 years ago, the 501c3.
Congratulations.
So I teach these children from the Met. I take them on, but I also take these victims or children that were underprivileged, and I teach them art or fashion.
That's amazing.
And it has changed their lives.
What an opportunity for not only these kids, but for you.
Yes, it makes me so happy.
Like, I'm sure it makes you appreciate things at a whole new level.
Yes.
Because as you said, you feel like when you were growing up, you came from a very, safe place.
Yes.
Very kind place. And you never saw anything else. But now it's like, when your eyes open to so much more, it's like you appreciate.
Yes.
You truly appreciate it.
I know how it affects. If I had not had it, I don't know what would have. And these children, they feel that light in them and that they accomplish something because they're struggling in other subjects. And I'm proud to say, all my students have become high honor students.
No way.
Because they know they have to get really good grades
That's awesome.
to become a really successful designer or anything in the future.
That's all. Because they found a passion, something they love. Oh my, they have their own glow now. Like their own, like, I can do this. I found something to do. So the students, so once they do, and they go to sew this material, do they go and pick out their material or what they want? Or is it like already decided for them?
No, Montessori, they have, they choose everything.
That's great.
They take responsibility for their own actions, and they learn all the different type of knits. They learn about wovens. They learn about textiles. They learn about color and feel. And yes, they have to go shopping, and they have to pick out their own fabrics.
Do you ever? Is there certain fabrics you stay away from, or?
This brings me to a really funny story. Because most people don't know about what I do, and a lot of people are still stuck in their old ways of going, oh no, wovens is easy, or knits, no, you don't want to do knits, that's too hard.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, when two of my parents and my students went shopping, one at Lorraine Mills and one at Joanne Fabrics, it's usually where I send them, and they came back with something opposite of what they were supposed to shop for, which was jersey cotton knit stretch. Well, the sales lady talked her out of it because she said, oh no, this is too hard. And so I had to call up the store, and I said, no,
this
is not too hard. In fact, most of my students only use knits. It is not too hard. You just have this thought that it's too hard because someone told you that and you believed it. But in actuality, we work only in knits, which is the most considered. But that shows you that my students can do it. 5 years old, they work with only jersey.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I just would love to see a 5-year-old on a sewing machine. How do they can't reach the pedals?
No, I use a little block. I have to they cannot reach it. So I've got like the shortest table, and then I have a little block here for the pedal, and they put their feet on it.
That is so Oh, that's amazing. So you've always loved fashion, creativity, and art. Has anyone mentored you, or a few mentors over your life, that have kind of inspired you even more in your development?
Oh, I've had a few. Sister Pius, which I went to Catholic school before I went to Cumberland High School. She told my mother she has to go to RISD. So it was her that I did an owl, and I won this book art contest. And my mother's like, but that's a college. She looked into it, but she didn't realize it were kids' classes. But that's what started. She's the one who mentored me with the art to pursue my talent, first grade.
That is amazing.
So I knew already since I was young, I was going to RISD. I mean, it was all in my mind already. That's where I was going.
This mentor, the sister, gave you the thought, like, this can happen.
She knew it would happen, yeah.
That's amazing.
And then when I went to New York, her name was Laura Greenberg. She hired me as an assistant designer, and she took me under her wing, and she taught me everything. She had been in the industry for a very long time, and she taught me everything she knew, because she was dying of cancer, and I didn't know. She never had children, never got married. So she's the one who gave me everything I needed to succeed in the fashion industry once I was hired.
Is it pretty competitive, the fashion industry?
Very.
Like, I've seen Hollywood-type movies, so, where it can be not so nice. Is that true? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are people with egos, but it's not about nice. I mean, the fashion industry is like one big happy family.
Oh, okay.
No. I mean, of course you're going to run into those that are competitive, I would say. That's not, they're just competitive. Okay. And they have egos. But, there's so many nice people in there, and everyone gets along, and you actually work together.
That's awesome. And so she gave you everything. So she set you up pretty well.
Oh, she set me up. She just flooded me. I was a sponge, and I soaked it all in.
That's amazing.
And that's what I do with my students now. I soak them the way she taught me and mentored me. I'm doing the same with them. I literally, their brain is like a sponge. I just soak it all in. And I just give them all my knowledge.
That's amazing.
Just passing it on.
I just think it's amazing that they have an opportunity to work with and learn from someone that has your experience, because that's a gift. Most people, you know, I taught high school math for a year, and I learned math from a book, not because I went to any math institute or worked at NASA, where that's like true life experience. So they're actually learning from someone that can give them actual life experience, which that's in Little Rhode Island. That's amazing.
That's what I'm calling it, real world
That's amazing.
experience.
That is simply amazing.
Thank you.
Now, when did this begin? In 2011?
Yeah, I started the idea and concept in 2011, started talking about it, then started looking for studios, and then, so we had our first fashion show with a small one, and then every year it gets bigger and bigger. And then I decided to register it in 2014.
Wow. That's quite a journey. So you're back in Rhode Island.
I know,
You
I'm
went
back in
full
Rhode
circle.
Island.
Did you ever think?
No. Actually, no. I mean, all I know is that my career as a designer was not going to be in Rhode Island. It was always going to be in New York. And so I never expected to leave New York either. But I ended up relocating to Europe in 1994. But for me, it was like just getting in the car and driving to Italy or Austria.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's all like next door. It's like
Yeah.
going to Connecticut,
Yes.
Vermont, and New Hampshire.
That's like absolutely amazing. That's an opportunity of
Thank
a
you.
lifetime. That's, so we only have a couple more minutes.
Okay.
If anyone wanted to get into fashion or learn more about what you do, how could they get in touch with you to maybe if they want to take classes or whatnot?
Well, actually, I've got lots of YouTube channels, and I have a home page too. It's just mellowprojectrunway.com. It's very simple.
And it's open to anyone to take the classes?
Yes, anyone can call me. They come in, I interview them, we find a slot that fits with their schedule, and it's an ongoing thing. I mean, you're never going to learn everything I know in like a week.
No.
It's literally set up so they can just be ongoing. 4 years. I've had students that drive from Boston for 4 years now.
Really?
Yeah. Some last for 5, some last for 3, last for 2.
That's amazing.
Yeah. If they miss a class, no big deal. We do a makeup. It's all very relaxed.
And do you do all ages or just children?
Oh, no. 5 years old to 80 years old.
That's amazing.
Anyone can do it.
That's amazing. You give me inspiration that maybe I could
Yes,
just sew.
please.
At 41, I can do this.
Of course you can.
Oh, you'll be
I
shocked.
told you at 60 years old, I had a teacher that was home. She came to me too.
That's amazing.
Of course you can.
Well, I think you're doing wonderful things for Rhode Island and for these children. And I think
Thank
the
you.
cause is going to something absolutely not spoken about before, but as you said, it's coming out more. So that's
Yeah, and that's the reason why. I mean, there was a lot of reasons why I started working with the kids. It was more to create more an awareness of their safety, education, and how intelligent they are.
that's amazing.
You know.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you, and welcome back to Rhode Island.
Thank you. I was glad to be back.
Thanks.